deterioration that was taking place.
You meet Maoist chairman, you also meet the prime minister, and you meet the leaders of the various parties. How do they in general react to the human rights issues? Do they say, okay, this is a serious concern, or do they just snub it?
No, I think very few people in Nepal react negatively. Most people, including all political party leaders, say that they support human rights.
We're talking about talking in principle, and then there's another part that's implementation.
Yeah, it's more difficult to implement.
Yes, obviously.
It requires a real determination and a real political will to stick to principles. And I think we see this most obviously in the lack of accountability for crimes and human rights violations, what we call the culture of impunity. And this underlies many of the obstacles in the peace process. And we believe that one of the answers to the human rights challenges that Nepal faces is a determined attempt to address impunity.
You think it's not being addressed enough?
I think not enough, no. And I think that we have seen some recent developments, such as the moves to establish a disappearance commission and a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which are moves forward in the last weeks, which are positive. But still more needs to be done. And when we talk, as we do, to victims of the conflict, or even victims of regular crimes in the current period, they still express doubt that the state has the capacity to bring the perpetrators to justice. And that is one of the fundamental benchmarks for a well-functioning state, that those who break the law are brought to justice. That is a sign of the rule of law.
That's why Truth and Reconciliation Commission was important. How do you think, do you think, I mean, we have formally ended the period of insurgency and we are in a peace process. How soon do you think these kind of Truth and Reconciliation Commissions and commissions on forced disappearances should be started? Do you think we've spent a lot of time, we've wasted a lot of time already?
Well, I wouldn't say wasted time, but I think that more urgency could have been shown, and that urgency continues to be needed. But perhaps more than anything, urgency needs to be shown on a range of peace process subjects. There is now a lull. We don't know what the situation will be in a couple of weeks' time.
Well before a storm.
And well, you said that, but obviously urgency and determination and wisdom is vital at this stage, be it on transitional justice mechanisms or on any other of the major elements of the peace process.
You put it very diplomatically, but do you think transitional justice, again, has not been stressed enough by the media or the political forces, both?
I think it's not been stressed enough. And when I meet victims groups, especially in the more remote parts of the country, and I ask them what are their priorities, or I ask even ordinary people what are their priorities, they usually put security and rule of law and justice at the top of the list. But perhaps they're not always put so high up the list by the political parties.
That's a worrying sign.
Yes, because these are key to a durable peace in Nepal. They're key to the transition that everyone has committed to in the CPA and in other documents. So they must not be sidelined. Human rights must remain central to the peace process in Nepal.
It's been already 4 years since we actually entered peace process. and we have not put enough priority on transitional justice. We've not formed any commissions who would actually deal with that. Let's say it's not done for 5 more years. What are we looking at?
Well, let's not think negatively.
I just wanted to see the worst case scenario.
I think we should. I think that all the elements are there to make it happen. It just requires political will. There is certainly the support of the international community, including the United Nations. If it doesn't happen, and in some countries it has taken a very long time to happen, these issues will not go away. They cannot be brushed under the carpet. Of course, Nepal should not dwell on the past. We're not talking about dwelling on the past. We're talking instead about learning from the past, but with an orientation towards the future. In other words, making sure that the future of Nepal is well grounded, and that the history is not repeated, that lessons are well learned, and that change takes place in a way that will provide the foundation for a better future for all Nepalis.
Let's just take you away from the seat you're actually sitting, that's representative of OHCHR. What would Richard Bennet, the human rights practitioner, would say about this? What needs to be done immediately? Because you, as you said, human rights situation is serious.
Yeah, the human rights situation is serious. OHCHR came to Nepal 5 years ago. Last week we found ourselves again monitoring a general strike and demonstrations on the streets. So how far have things come? I think every Nepali, and we support them, wants a better future. There are some improvements, and I've mentioned some of them, but still more needs to be done on public security, on impunity, on strengthening national institutions, on improving economic, social, and cultural rights, and on eliminating discrimination and improving inclusion. Human rights is not a quick fix. You can't make an overnight transformation. We don't want to outstay our welcome at OHCHR, but at the same time, it does take effort and time to bring about the necessary changes. There's nothing more than we want to see is a strong human rights protection network in Nepal, including a strong and effective NHRC and other national institutions, as well as civil society, and a rights-friendly government that is acting seriously on its obligations.
All I can say is Amen. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much, and hope your dreams actually work out.
Thank you very much.
That was representative of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Richard Bennet, talking to us. News continues at KTV. We'll have news in brief, but before that, a short break.